What's up, guys? Thank you for showing up for another episode of Chat with Will. We're here with Dr. Edwin Adams, the co-host as well as the man behind the scenes, and just a leader, alchemist, and just a great leader in general. I'm super thankful for him being here, and I'm thankful for every single one of you guys being here. I think it's so awesome that we can connect with people all over the world and share our experiences. And I can share the things that have been helping me. And this week is all about breath and mindset. What if we had complete control over our anxieties, our thoughts, our stress, and even our physical health? Our breath is our doorway into all of our control centers where we learn to regulate our happiness, our health, and even our moods and thoughts. But this is a skill that we must learn and that we must practice to be able to be the masters of our minds and masters of our thoughts and our emotions and just master of ourselves. We don't just wake up in the morning and we got it all figured out. Every day is a practice to just be better the next day. And I'm super excited to be able to share just all the things that have truly helped me along the way of just becoming my best self and overcoming my anxiety and overcoming my overthinking and my thoughts and my stress and my fears. And so I can step into my best life, which here I am, and then hopefully help more people around the world become all that they can be. Because, as I've said many times before, the stronger we can be as individuals, the stronger we can be as a species and as a planet. So I believe it's our duty to help out the ones around us. And here we are.
Awesome, Will. Well, look, congratulations on having a significant influence, because I don't know if you saw your latest Facebook group count, but over 3,200. What?
Yeah, it's growing fast, and I'm not sure how or why or what's going on. It seems like every time I log into that thing, I'm getting about 500 requests. So, I've been sharing a lot of really cool things in there, just, the things and the photos that have been helping me out, from breath work, from nutrition to movement to even some permaculture and, even some BMX stuff every once in a while too. And I'm super stoked that people are taking a liking to it and must be sharing it somewhere.
Yeah, I think it is so important to show up wherever people are. And I think you've got such an awesome presence and influence, not only on YouTube, which is where these recordings eventually show up, but now you're taking over Facebook, which is kind of the unknown territory for you, and you're just getting your feet wet. So I can't wait to see how you grow that. So
Yeah, yeah, I
congratulations.
put a little bit more focus on the Facebook since my Instagram got hacked and deleted. My Instagram was my main bread and butter, I guess you can say. And then the universe kind of threw me a curveball by losing my whole Instagram with it got hacked and deleted. So if you are watching this, go check out my new Instagram. It's the Will Grant, and I'm starting it all over. But during that time off, I got to check out some other platforms. I've been more on Twitter. I've been more on Facebook, and there's a lot of bad things with social media, but you don't have to involve yourself in all the bad things. There's also a lot of really cool things on social media, as long as you're not wasting too much time on it. And I'm super grateful to use that microphone to be able to share my experiences and hopefully connect with people to bring them value and to help them in any way that my unique path can.
Awesome. Well, speaking of tools, we're on one right now with this live webinar of Zoom.
Mhm.
David, Gary, Manuel, thank you for being here so much. If you do have questions, please don't hesitate to put those in the Q&A feature. I'll be keeping up with those and interrupt Will and try to get those answered for you live. I'll be also watching the chat area, and if Will says anything that you need to remember, I'll be sure to send it out there for you guys. So again, thanks for showing up. And Will, let's get this conversation started. I've got a curiosity for you. I mean,
Okay.
you have been preaching and teaching so much over this webinar series. And I guess I had an epiphany the other day that why aren't most people doing this, and why are we in a small percentage of the population who is now just figuring this out and finding it? Where did we go wrong?
What, as far as with the Zoom or as far as with the
No,
breath
with
work?
breathing and movement and happier, healthier, stronger. Where did we get off track to forget about these basics of life?
I mean, I think we're on a lot of programs, with the TV and the media and everything around. It doesn't seem normal because breath is free, like breath is free, and there's not a lot of money in happy, healthy, strong people. There's a lot of money in sick and stressed people. And I think that's where a lot of the focus on, and that's where a lot of our tension is too, with the news and the media and all the craziness going around in the world. Um, a lot of times I feel like if we can just stop for a moment and connect with our breath and really let that dust settle, we can kind of see what's going on. But it's difficult to do that in this, day and age. But I think it's getting more and more popular as, a lot of, Wim Hof has been on everything from Oprah to Thomas Below and on the TV. So I think, it's starting to get out more and more, but this is stuff that's not new. It's been in the East for thousands of years where they've kind of knew about this stuff and they've been figuring a lot of this stuff out. So, but yeah, it's interesting, but I think it's hard to say, we're just along for the journey.
Yeah, and I forget who said it. It was either Joe Dispenza or John Maxwell. I've read so many of their books lately. I forgot. I'm kind of mushing all the information together, but I believe one of them said attention is the currency of today,
Yeah.
and where our attention goes, so does our energy. And I think, unfortunately, it's all external, like you said, money. Follow the money trail, and that's usually where our attention is. And money is another energy, but uh, attention seems to be what people are not willing to point inward
Yeah,
to a
it
term that
doesn't.
you use a lot, self-mastery, and I really like that word. Can you talk about self-mastery and the attention that you have placed on
Yeah.
being a better you?
Well, we can just talk about attention first, because I feel like so many of us today seem to have little control over our attention and over our energy because, we wake up in the morning and we might turn on the news or grab our phone, and those things just really relinquish our power of being proactive. Instead, it kind of puts us in this reactive state. So we're constantly reacting to our external environment instead of inwardly creating the world and the environment that we want to create. And I think there, with all this craziness going on, there is so much distractions that is taking our attention and taking our energy. And that's why I think breath work and self-mastery has been so important, especially in my life, is just to wake up and before I grab my phone, before I open up anything, I have to go inward first and be proactive with my attention and be proactive with my energy. And that starts by just having a good morning routine, waking up, taking my bed, brushing my teeth, and then getting down on the mat and just connecting with my breath and connecting with my body. And I think that quick little change of just doing something proactive that is good for you can set the tone for the day, so the external environment isn't in total control over your attention, but you've already grabbed your attention and grabbed your energy first thing in the morning. And then the more we do this, the better we get at it, and then we get really good at focusing our attention on the things we care about and directing our energy on the things we truly intend to create.
I like that. Kurt's making a great point in the chat room. He's saying, so true. We have to be more careful about not only letting social media be a distraction, but also manipulate our emotions and our days subconsciously. So let me focus on that word for a minute, Will, subconscious. Also read recently, and I think it was Dr. Bruce Lipton who was talking about the biology of belief, said that the amount of information that our conscious awareness can process is minuscule compared to what our subconscious can. It's huge leaps in processing power. So it's not until we raise our subconscious awareness to our conscious thought that we can actually start paying attention to the things that we need to pay attention to. And
Yeah.
that puts a lot of power behind what we end up doing.
Yeah, for sure. Being in control over our energy and being in control over our attention and our focus is everything. Because if you're not in control of what you think, feel, and do, then, every gust of the wind or every momentum of any wave is going to push you left or right. But that's why that breath work is so important, because I know we're not the only species on the planet, but we are one of the only species that can consciously take control over our breathing patterns, and I think that we're given this ability for a reason, of course, and when we learn how to take control over our conscious, bring our breath to a conscious activity, then we learn to take other aspects of our life more of the conscious, more of a conscious state. So many of us, like I said, we're not in control, so we're drifting left or right. But when we take control of our breath, we tend to take control of ourselves. And when we take control of ourselves, that's really the only way to control our lives.
I thought of you yesterday, Will. My wife and I, we were just sitting in the living room. We were reading. It was quiet, and she took a very deep breath, and it was odd. I haven't in my past paid much attention to anyone's breath, but it seems like I'm doing that all the time now, thanks to you, Will. Yeah. I'm paying attention a lot. But she took a deep breath, and I said, "Why'd you do that?" And she said, "Do what?" Because it came across as like a sigh, like, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "I didn't know I did that." And I'm like, well, probably we're sitting here quiet, you're shallow breathing, and your body was like, feed me, take a deep breath or something. And I think that level of awareness escapes us during our day. I love how you said you've got to build it in, or else you're just going to pass it off as breathing's not important.
Yeah, and our breath is also our regulator, and that's like, we are pretty much always breathing the way that we're feeling. We just don't know it, like she was completely unaware that when she sighed, like her body needed some sort of relief, of some sort of, because a sigh feels good. If you just go, a nice audible sigh, you can just relax everything inside of your body. And we're constantly regulating our body with our breath. We just don't even know. But that's the most beautiful thing that that we've discovered along this path, is that by taking conscious control of our breath, we can consciously regulate our system, our thoughts, our moods. Like anytime where you're feeling anxious or you're feeling anxiety, or you're if it's to the point where you have a depression, then you need a lot of deeper, more breath work on a consistent basis. But even anxiety, you can take it right there in that moment. As soon as you notice yourself feeling anxious or stressed or anything, we can stop and just put our attention and our energy on our breath. And then it becomes impossible to simultaneously think about your breath at the same time you're thinking about whatever is causing you anxiety or whatever is causing you any sort of stress. So just to stop and just to connect with your breath instantly in that moment, it lets whatever that is that's, stirring you up, it lets that dust settle so you can really see, a clear aspect of what's going on. And then you can use your breath to regulate and feel however you want to feel. Like I asked you this before, Edwin, imagine if you could feel anything you want, like any sort of mental state that you wanted to be in. Wouldn't you all day want to be in gratitude and joy and love and bliss? Like, we have the ability to stop, connect with our breath, and instantly put our energy and ourselves and our emotions in a state of love and in a state of joy and gratitude and bliss. But we have to stop and take control of that moment. We have to stop and take control over our breath. And a lot of people will try this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and they kind of feel it, but not sure. And then they're like, okay, I'll just give up. I'm not sure if it worked. Maybe it will work for other people, not me. But it's like anything. If I gave you a violin and you've never played a violin consciously, and you spent a complete total of 4 sessions, and the 4 sessions totaled maybe 20 minutes, would you be a good violin player?
No.
Probably not. You probably still wouldn't even be able to play a song yet. It takes, a little bit of that, more of that familiarity every single day, and when we build that familiarity with our breath, then we really start to understand ourselves. And you can't control what's going on until you first understand what's going on.
Yeah, well, I think there are two things that you're speaking to, Will. There's the component of solving a problem with breath, and then um, what would be the other one? You're not solving a problem. You are mastering and creating. That you
Yeah, using it also as a practice, because every time that, we've figured out at this point that the more present we are in everything that we're doing, the better we're going to do it, and the more we're going to get out of it, and the better we're going to feel while doing it. It doesn't matter if that's a conversation with your loved one, a conversation with your kids, if that's in your job, your work, your sport, whatever you care about. We figured out at this point that the more we can be present, diving all of our attention, our energy, and our focus towards whatever we're doing, the better we're going to get out of it. And every time that you stop and connect with your breath, it brings you into that present moment, because your next breath is the next moment, and the breath before was the previous moment. So if you stop and put your attention on the sensations of that oxygen easily coming in through your nose and out through your nose, and feeling that breath, you're bringing all of your attention into that present moment. And that becomes a habit. And the more you do this, and the more you practice this, then you'll catch yourself just more present in other things that you do. Because we do one thing the way we do everything. If you're reading a book and checking your phone, most likely you're checking your phone during the work. Most likely you have the same sort of bringing your attention from this to that loses a lot of quality in both things. But the more that we can just use our breath, dive into that moment, and bring ourselves into that moment, the easier that pathway will be to go back into the moment throughout the day.
Yeah, Kurt's even commenting on that. What you're describing, Will, sounds like lucid. I feel like that sums up what you're saying.
It sounds like what?
It sounds like what you're saying is that it's lucid living. It's not a dreamlike state. Lucid dreams feel so real and fulfilled and joyful. Yeah. All those emotions that you're talking about. That's what lucid is referring to. Yeah, that's a great comment, Kurt.
I think the ultimate goal, or say the best possible day, I'm not sure if anybody, or I know I can't, or nobody I know that can, but say the best possible day is if the whole day was almost like a meditation. So when you wake up in the morning, you're brushing your teeth and you're perfectly in that present moment, you're making your breakfast, you're putting, everything that you're doing, you're able to just let the mind relax, and what you got to do, just do it.
So I think people want to respond to problems more than they do from a position of creativity. So how would I know that I have a problem breath can solve? And I would choose breath as
Yeah, well, one, if you have a hard time managing stress, if you have stress that is limiting your potential, if you have thoughts and feelings that are going on a consistent basis that you wish weren't there, but you just don't know how to get rid of them or don't know how to fix them. That's where breath work comes in. Or even if you have low energy levels, most likely you're just breathing really inefficiently. It's we can go over a month without food within a couple minutes without oxygen. And we put so much focus and attention on, the foods that we eat and the water that we drink and all the sleep that we need, but we don't really talk about our quality of breath, but that is really what's affecting our moment to moment feelings and state. So yeah, you're struggling with mental health issues, or even physical health issues too. You'll be surprised with how deep breaths and even breath holds as well. Just learning how to belly breathe and breathe through the nose will instantly immune system strengthen your nervous system, heal, like put your body in a more repair. If you have any sort of digestive issues, breath work can absolutely do wonders, because a lot of digestive issues are related to stress, because your body cannot be stressed at the same time that it's digesting food. You know, because your body is in those two states. It's either in the sympathetic or parasympathetic state. Your sympathetic state is where you're stressing, you're worrying, you're having anxiety. And you know, the parasympathetic is when you're relaxed, is when you're calm, when your body is digesting. So if you have digestive issues, most likely you could be mouth breathing all day, so your digestive system just has a hard time turning on. Or with stress, if you have chronic stress in any way, you'll probably have some sort of digestive issues as well, because you digest at the same time.
Yeah, you know, I found out I had a pathological breathing problem at night, and I wouldn't have known it unless my wife had let me know that I stopped breathing at night. So you go to a sleep study and they tell you, yeah, you stopped breathing about 78 times last night, to the point that we think you have a problem that's going to impact not only your stress during the day, but also, you know, your cardiovascular system, your lungs, everything is impacted by breath. And that was a wake-up call to pay attention during the day how I breathe.
Yeah.
And I realized I was a shallow breather all day long. That contributed to a feeling of anxiety. So if I had just been intentional with slowing down a little bit, taking some deep breaths, I think my days would go a lot better, Will.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, I would like to clarify one thing. It's like, if your mouth is closed and you're taking calm breaths through the nose, it really does wonders. You know, by shallow breathing, you know, breathing light is a lot different than breathing shallow. You know, you can breathe very light through the nose, so you don't hear it, and you're efficient with your fuel. But if, you know, or with your gases. But if you're breathing shallow, a lot of times it's through the mouth. Who listens to this is throughout the day, as much as possible, you want to make sure that you're actually breathing through the nose, because that's what's going to turn on that cell in your body to be stressed, to be anxious, to look for that tiger that's trying to attack you. But if we can just close mouth and just calm breaths, and when I mean deep, I don't mean like huge breaths like that, but I mean deep as in starting from your stomach. You know, first learning how to breathe through your stomach, and then your chest, you know, and then easily letting it out. And that's what, you know, where I see most people going wrong, or like that. So you're really not getting that oxygen deep, and that's what tells your body to stress. So if you close your mouth and take in nice breaths through your nose, you'll automatically breathe more through your stomach. But so many of us are such chronic chest and mouth shallow breathers that stomach is almost stuck. And for those people, I really recommend, like, if you can't just sit here right now while I'm talking and take a breath through your nose and expand your whole stomach, you know, without expanding your chest, that means you're not breathing through your stomach. So you can lay down on the mat and put one hand on your stomach and one hand on your chest, and see if you can breathe just through your stomach without moving the hand on your chest. And if you can't do that, I would start there, just retraining your body how to belly breathe. Like Kids, of course, like everything, they're doing everything perfect. They got it all figured out. It's us that we forget it, right? So kids, they actually usually are perfectly breathing through their stomach and through their nose, but around 5, 6, 7 years old, when they go to school, they do a lot of sitting, they start eating a lot of processed food, and then stress comes into their life. That's what makes their body feel like they need to, as opposed to,
Wow.
he feels.
Wow. So how much breathing is enough? And I'm talking about that. Well, that's a terrible question. How much intentional breathing exercise routines are enough during your day to start with? Is it just in the morning, or do you schedule it 3 times a day? What makes most sense?
To me, what makes most sense is every single day, connect with your breath before you grab your phone, before you grab the newspaper, before you turn on the TV, before you react to anything throughout your day. Connect with your breath. The more time you do, the more you'll get out of it. But if you want to start with 3 minutes just to build that habit and build that consistency, that's going to be way better than doing 30 minutes once a month. Okay.
Sure.
So just every single day, if it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, build it up, build that tolerance up, because if you've never stopped and connected to your breath and you set a timer for 15 minutes and just try to think about your breath, it's very challenging. It's a great challenge that will help heal you in almost every single way, but it's really difficult. So if you're not really wanting to change anything or do anything extremely difficult just yet, start with 3 minutes, start with 4 minutes, start with 5 minutes, and every single morning, and then use it throughout the day. Every single time that you find your mind going somewhere that doesn't serve you, just stop and feel your breath. Just in through the nose, out through the nose, and just relax. And all day, no matter what, try to catch yourself with your mouth open, okay? And just try to constantly be aware of how you're breathing. Are you breathing through the nose? Are you breathing through the mouth? And start with that. And every single time that you catch yourself with your mouth open, breathing through the mouth for no reason, catch yourself, close your mouth, take a nice deep from the stomach breath through the nose, and that's an amazing practice of presence that'll take you into that present moment. And the more you do that, it's going to build that pathway of that familiarity where it's going to be easier, and you'll just become more mindful and more aware. And that's the key to a successful life, is being more mindful and being more aware. So I would start with a morning routine, and then just trying to connect with it as much as you can throughout the day, trying to close that mouth, because the only time our mouths should be open is when we're talking, when we're eating, or when we're fighting for our lives, or at 100% maximum effort. So for example, if I'm in a race, that 45 to 60-second race, I'm giving everything I have. It's a fight, and then at the finish line, I have to, but then as soon as I can, I try to close my mouth and gain my composure and my energy back through my nose. And that is an extreme example of our lives, because that is a literal 100% maximum effort is a sport. But that's really the only times that you want your mouth open.
Yeah, and two things. Yeah, go ahead.
And then a lot of people will say, well, what about the Wim Hof breathing? Because we notice that you're breathing through the mouth on the Wim Hof breathing. And that's because that's 100% maximum effort. You're actually putting yourself in that state to spike up that adrenaline, to deal with stress, and to manage what's going on. You're diving right into whatever that is. And then, so that's why you want to, but that's really the only time. And then even then, I've been doing Wim Hof breathing for a couple of years now. And as I'm getting better and better at it, I'm starting to use my nose more, even during the Wim Hof breathing. But if you're just starting out, just breathe.
Yeah, Will, I think the practice of presence is so important right now, particularly with all the distractions we have. We lose sight of the presence. We're either stuck on an emotion that we've put meaning to from our past and we're living backwards, or we have fear or anxiety about the things that we can't control, so we're stuck in the future and worry. presence is so important, because the more you practice that, I think the bigger the neurons get that go to your diaphragm that make you breathe a lot more efficiently, you conserve more energy because you have rewired the way you breathe in the moment. And that's only going to serve you when you do come to those anxious moments. You can pause, become self-aware of your condition, and then breathe into the solution rather than be victimized by the circumstance.
Yeah, 100%. The way we breathe is the way we live, for sure. I can't say that enough. We breathe the way we live. We do one thing the way we do everything, and those thoughts of our past or those anxieties over our future, those are our limitations. Every time that you go to do something and if it's stopping you from doing it because something happened in the past or some fear over the future, that's the only thing that's holding you back from being your best you, and that's the beautiful thing. I love how Joe Dispenza calls the present moment the generous present moment. It's because in the present moment, that's where you can learn how to feel good. That's where you create. That's where you're past your limitations, is when you are right here, right now, with your whole being, your whole attention, your whole energy into this moment, whatever that is. That's when you're past your limitations. That's when you're past your anxiety. That's when you're over your fears, is in this moment right now. A lot of times people don't just to get real personal, for example, my mother has probably lived one of the gnarliest, roughest lives I've ever heard anyone live in my whole entire life. And when I was first telling her about breathing and meditation, she said she doesn't like to meditate because if she stops, that's when everything comes up. That's when all of the memories of the past come up, and that's when all the pain starts to stir. So she would rather turn the TV on and just numb the mind so she doesn't feel that. And I could relate to that of 4, 5, 6 years ago, but I was doing in a different way where I was just living my life full throttle with the pedal to the metal all the way down. If it was drugs, if it was sex, if it was alcohol, if it was BMX, it was just taking any risk I can. I was chasing that heart race to get my heart racing as much as I could, because as soon as I started to calm down and that heart started to slow, that's when the pain started coming up. All those things that I never dealt with, all of those things, again, my limitations from the past, they started coming up. And then, of course, what I used to do before is I would either eat bad food or call up a girl or, go drinking alcohol or doing a bunch of drugs or go run my car as fast as it can go or, go jump off a pier or something, and it was, but when I went and put my head, unless I drank myself to sleep, it still hurt. Unless I was medicating or with something that wasn't working, that pain was still coming up because I kept trying to mask it. And it didn't go away until I faced that, until I started learning from my breath of, look, if I wanted to heal from that, I'm going to breathe into it. So I just started breathing and breathing. And when it came up, all of that pain, I just kept breathing and I kept facing into it. And then I started releasing all of that stored energy, all of that stored pain, all of that stored tension. I was using my breath to just release it. You can release tension easily. Everybody who's listening right now, take a 7-second inhale through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then just exhale and relax everything in your body. You can consciously, and the more you do this, the better you get at it, but you can relax the tension inside your shoulders, and you could relax all of that tension and energy that you're holding on to. And when you can release that tension, release that energy, then you got all of this energy that's ready to create. Then you got all of this energy that's ready to really flourish in whatever area in your life that's important to you. Most likely every area, because like I said, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So that's how to really start creating your best life. And, because if you're not a victim of your thoughts and your emotions, and you can direct your thoughts and emotions towards things, that's when you are really flourishing in life, because you're doing what's truly important to you, what's your true purpose and what's your true passion.
Yeah, probably the number one question I get as a personal development coach is from men aged 18 to probably 38, maybe 40, who are looking for purpose and passion. And the one thing they have yet to do is sit in silence,
Yeah, I love
be
that.
present enough
Yeah,
to identify when they create, where is that, what does it look like, and what is produced. Instead, their vision is outside. They're anxious, they're
yeah,
worried about their past transgressions and comparing themselves to everybody else and what their future will look like, and they never sit. So breath has become one of those critical components to create a platform of creativity for the people I coach. So I'm so glad you said that. That is
yeah.
so true.
Your purpose and passion is all, it's already there,
It's not
like,
outside, it's
yeah,
inside.
yeah, it's right there. And if you don't know your purpose, if you don't know what you're passionate about, you don't know yourself. And that's okay, because most of us don't. I'm still learning about myself every day. I think it's, the 90 to 100 years that you're here, it's like that job to learn about yourself a little bit more, because you can't master yourself if you don't know yourself. And that's why the breath is just the easiest, freest, cheapest, most beautiful tool, because when you stop and connect with your breath, those thoughts and those programs, they come up. Those thoughts that are running your whole entire life, they're going to come up. And then you bring your attention back to your breath. And then you just keep breathing. And then, what bothered you 5 years ago or what bothered you yesterday is probably going to come up. You let it go and then bring it back to your breath. And you keep doing that and keep doing that. And all of that BS that's sitting up at the top, that is clogging the drain to get to the real purpose and get to the real passion, that's going to drain on through. That dust is going to settle if you sit with yourself with time. But it takes time to get through that surface. And once you're past that surface, then you really start to understand, like, all of a sudden, then you really start to know who you are. Then the thoughts that were coming up of how you felt when you were 4, 5, 6, 7 years old start coming up. And the joy and the love that you felt when you were 4 years old, now you start to remember how you're really supposed to feel and what you truly cared about. It was just the programs and all of the boxes of today's social structure that kind of limited our understanding to realize it's already here. We were already born with it. It's our job just to figure it out. And then the beautiful thing about the breath is that's the doorway in.
Yeah, kids can be our greatest teacher. They have joy, love, passion, and purpose figured out, and they go create it every single day
Yeah.
with pots and pans, with dirt and worms, you name it. They will create joy wherever they are. That's
They're
great.
not worried about much, as long as they're fed and they got friends around them and they got something to do. Like, they're not worried about much. And they're the perfect movers, they're the perfect breathers. Like, you can learn so much from kids in everything that they're doing, because that's before all of the life's limitations has really try to box them into the structure of today.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. A lot of my clients, I don't want to call it a complaint, but I will complain that when they sit in silence and breathe into that present moment, that the thoughts get overwhelming. And I'm like, well, let them come. Don't try to do anything with them. Just acknowledge it and see what else is coming up. And then after the breathing session, think into, why were those coming up? Why am I worried about money? Why am I worried about sex? Why am I worried about drugs and alcohol? And I
Yeah.
think if you get into a journaling practice, you kind of start to identify, when you're not in the breathing moment, when you're in the evaluation moment of the patterns that you saw, you can really get some insight into meaning that you have put on a past emotional experience, and start working through that to unbind that emotion from it so it doesn't control you anymore. And I think that's hard for people to sit in silence because they're scared, like you mentioned, of what's coming up. And oh no, when I sit in silence, that bad thing from the past comes up. And no, I'm not going to do it.
I got two things on that. Like one, I remember that. Like I went through that, and one thing I noticed is if you do longer sessions, like say a 30-minute session or over a 30-minute session, you're there long enough to where your mind will evaluate it. Like you'll go into that depth of, okay, why do I do these things? Like, okay, I know these things are holding me back. And then if you're sitting with yourself long enough, your brain is making those connections and figuring those out. And then that's what brings me to the second thing. I've done most of my writing and most of my figuring right after the sessions, right? So in the morning, before I grab my phone, when I'm on that mat, I'm doing that breath work, I'm doing that meditation, I'm doing that movement. Right after that is usually when I'll go to my sketchbook and I'll write down any insights or noticed or what went down or what went on of something I feel like can help me later. And then I take my energy and I set an intention. That's how you put that your energy towards what you're really wanting, is by setting an intention. And one awesome thing I learned from Joe Dispenza, of something I've done before I've read the book, but now he just made it make more sense, is our heart is like our amplifier. So, and then if we connect that with some sort of gratitude or some sort of love, then that just makes that energy even stronger that we're putting out into the world, because our heart is going to amplify whatever intention that is. So
remind people the name of that book.
Becoming Supernatural. Yeah, by Joe Dispenza is one of the most awesome books. But I'll give you a quick little example. Like, I'll read what I wrote today when I was working with the summer camp. I'll first write out my intention of why I'm doing this. Because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you're not in control of what's going on. Like, live intentionally. Every single time you go to work out, stop and understand what's your intention of doing it. Why you're going to work. If it's to pay for your kids or to be healthier or to do better, at least know what that is. And then it makes it more likely to happen. So in the morning, like, I wrote something like, my intention is to make a positive impact and experience experience in all the attendees. I intend to show how to be the best version of ourselves by keeping my vibration high and contributing to others. My intention for us all is to have fun and get better. I intend to bring out the best of the ones around me. And then right after that, I went into some sort of gratitude. I'm grateful for this experience of being able to help others while having fun. I'm grateful for the summer camp to bring an opportunity to learn how to help people become their best as well as myself. I'm grateful for BMX that brings friends and an awesome community to enjoy and serve. And that just amplifies my whole intention. It doesn't have to be like mine or even anything like mine. Whatever yours is, just to know what you're wanting to get out of it, and then to amplify that with some sort of gratefulness just makes that energy stronger. You're ready to get that throughout the day.
And that's a radiator. Joe Dispenza talks about that in the book, that amplification is something you radiate out into the world, and you attract other energies like that. And people can tell you're in a different place strictly by the energy that you broadcast.
Oh, for sure. When I was doing this, before I was doing this breathing, and I had all of those negative energies stored up, and I had all that pain and all that trauma and all that emotion. I was hurting everybody around me, and I was attracting people who liked pain and wanted to give back, give back more pain. And I was attracting bad people in my life, and I was just attracting more of that BS. And then it got to the point where everything around me seemed like it was exploding. I'm not even kidding. I was going to the local track. They didn't want me there. I was going here. They didn't want, every bridge was just exploding and falling down because it just got so toxic. But now it's like, my energy is completely different. I swear, like, every day someone new comes into my life with new opportunities and new learnings and new, it's all these synchronicities. Now it's like my life feels like I'm flowing through it instead of, fighting through it.
Yeah, that's great. Just want to take a break real quick to acknowledge the people who are here. Braden, always good to see you on here. Cristiano, good to see you back. Gary, Kurt, Manuel. Manuel actually has a question for you, Will. What is your approach to allowing the flow of life and the universe to guide you while at the same time following your purpose or dream? So that's part one.
Yeah. I like that. One is I clarify my intention of what my purpose and dream is. And then in that moment, I'm in flow. Okay. So I take out time every single day. Oh, I just dropped my computer.
To fall down. Your phone
Yeah,
was doing the Wim Hof method.
that happens. But yeah, so I take that time every single day to clarify where I'm trying to go and my, and my intention and my goals and my purpose. And then I already know what to do. So I don't need to do much thinking throughout the day. I just need to be being and jumping into that present moment and into that flow state and letting life, flow me, but also knowing my intentions to know, hey, this is the path I'm on. If I maybe want to go there, I know it doesn't really align with where I'm intending to go. So I'm just going to keep trekking forward.
So part two of his question is there a contradiction between actively setting goals and allowing life to flow with you? Ah, that's a good
Good
one.
question. I really like that question. And it can feel like that sometimes, but I feel like if you keep realigning every single day, it doesn't. Okay. So if you're just unintentionally, unconsciously going about it like that, it kind of seems like a constant battle of, okay, these are my goals, but life is flowing me this way. But when you have alignment, when your energy is aligned with your purpose and your purpose is aligned with your goals and your intention, and it's all aligned with your life and in that present moment, then it's a dance where like, and what I mean by dance is dancing, it's not a force, but you're also knowing what you're trying to do and knowing how you're trying to move, but you're flowing with somebody else's energy. And that's what it feels like when I feel like you got it right, is you're intentionally moving, but you're dancing with the flow of the universe.
Yeah. So Manuel, the way I would answer that is we are purposed on this planet and created in the image of our creator. And I think we have an obligation to set intentions, step forward, grow and create. So that intention in alignment with your giftedness and your awareness of your giftedness is the superpower that comes together that establishes your journey on the planet. So that's a rhythm. So I loved how you said dance, because you dance in response to a rhythm of life, and it ebbs and it flows, and there are good days and bad days, but the dance never stops. I think where we get into trouble is when we reside in our comfort zone, and not only are we not transmitting a rhythm, we're not even listening to it, and we're not even dancing. So you've got to disrupt comfort, be aware of your giftedness, set some intentions, and dance. And you know what? You might step off the floor sometimes. Get back on the floor.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like, from what I've noticed is life is always pushing you away. It almost like it pushes you out of alignment because there's all these different energies coming from all different areas that are going to push you in all different ways. But when you can realign yourself with who you are and what you're trying to do, you know which energies and which frequencies to align yourself with and to connect with and what to dance with, as opposed to just because something seems like a good idea at the time. Our brain and body can fool us, because I know every time I walk by chocolate chip cookies, my whole brain and body says, you got to get that right now. It doesn't mean it's good for me, so it's about clarifying like what you're trying to, who you are, first of all, using that breath work to realign yourself every day, connect to learn and understand yourself, have that conversation with yourself every single day. And by having that conversation, I just mean sitting with yourself and listening to yourself talk, because that's what's going to happen in meditation is, because that's the way to really learn about somebody, right? If you go on a date and you want to learn about that someone, you're not going to learn by talking. You're going to learn by sitting back and just listen to them run their mouth. And if you want to learn about yourself, that's what meditation is. That's what breath work is. A lot of times, because you're just sitting, listening to yourself, your mind jab on, and then you really start to understand what's important to you, what you're doing, what's holding you back, what feels good, the right things to do. Deep down, especially if you connect with your breath every day, you really know. But deep down inside, you already know what's the best decision. You just got to trust yourself enough to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Will. And I like what you said about listening more than you speak. But when you do speak, make it from the standpoint of insatiable curiosity. Just so I can't imagine a worse date than sitting across the table listening to someone all night long, and it be a one-way conversation. So insatiable curiosity with someone else is the same interrogation process I think we should be doing with ourselves after these meditative processes, asking the what and why questions to ourselves that got us to this point of emotional dissatisfaction with where we are. So asking good questions and being a good interrogator of others will help you be a better interrogator of yourself.
I like that.
So a comment here from Manuel. Thanks, guys. I love the comparison to dance since I am a dancer as my job and lifestyle. Oh, awesome. Speaking of that, Will.
That's synchronicity. That right there is a synchronicity.
I know. There you go. That was a perfect example. And I wanted to ask you the question, actually, while you were talking, if you could go to any concert, Will, what concert would you go to and why?
Like, does it have to be music?
No.
Man, I think it'd be really cool to go to a Joe Dispenza or a Tony Robbins event.
Yeah.
I think Tony Robbins event may be a little bit too big these days for my liking. I like something a little smaller, but I think it'd be sweet to go to like a Joe Dispenza event for sure. Just anything that's gonna further along my education or knowledge of the things I'm interested in, or just anything that I'm going to learn about and grow from. I'm obsessed with learning.
Yeah, and you've never been to either one though. There's a reason why I'm asking the question that be it music or an educational symposium. Well, Joe Dispenza's are pretty advanced, in-depth personal analyses, but nonetheless, you are putting yourself in an environment to be intentional about your growth. And I think also to Manuel's point earlier,
it feels good. Growth feels good. Like, it's hard to have a better feeling than going to bed knowing like you got better at something. If that's money, if that's sport, if that's health, if that's being a better father, a better mother, a better friend, like that feels good.
That's the answer is growth. And that's a disruption of being comfortable, which is stagnation and death. Is when we're comfortable. We're meant to create and we're meant to grow. So I think by asking you that question, where you feel most likely to grow is where you want to place yourself. And I think that's such a wonderful thing to live by, and realize that your environment is either going to be conducive to your growth or it's going to be a distraction from it. So that's another level of unconscious awareness. We need to,
but we can also use the distractions in our environment as training, as practice. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that I learned from my brother. Hold on.
Help Jada scratch. Come on, Will.
Like that's something that I learned from my brother, is like everything is just a practice, So it's like if a lot of times like, oh, I can't meditate because this isn't right, or I can't do this because this isn't right. Just practice then. Because it's like if you're a pro baseball player, before they get up to bat, they're putting, the donut things on their bats just to make their, bat a little bit heavier, a little bit more challenging. And then when they take that off, they're just ripping that thing, and that's the same way. If there is a distraction or if there is something that you don't have control over in your life, think of it as an opportunity, like, oh, this is just going to make me better. And like standing up for that challenge is what is going to ignite that growth. And that growth is what makes us flourish, just like a
Yeah.
plant.
Flourish. That is such a great word. That's better than flow. Flourish. That is a great word. Kurt said, yeah, that's fantastic. Synchronicity in action. Nature does allow the path of least resistance, they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
have to align yourself with that vibration that you want to align yourself with, and that's something I learned from my own path was, I was wondering why my life was so miserable and I felt so awful, but I was constantly aligning my energy with pain and force and fight and stress. And then when I started to practice feeling good, I began to feel good. And that's what a lot of breath work is like, I remember when I was feeling bad one time, but I was learning about all this breath work and I was practicing all this breath work. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel something. And then I just laid on my bed. I set a timer for, I don't know if it was 15 or 30 minutes. And I just tried to fall in love with my breath, where I would literally just lay on my back and I was just breathing, putting my mind on my breath and just trying to absolutely love the feeling of breathing. And just every single breath was just an absolute feeling of love and joy. And the first 5-10 minutes didn't feel that way. It felt like, what the fuck am I doing? You know what I mean? But then, if you just stick with it, then all of a sudden it's dipping into the subconscious and then stuff start making sense. And then at the end of it, I felt so loving. I felt so loved. I felt so whole. I felt so one. And then I just realized, like, holy cow, if you can fall in love with breathing, if you fall in love with your breath, first of all, you fall in love with yourself because you are your breath. And then another thing is, if you can learn to enjoy breathing, if you learn to enjoy breathing, everything else is just a bonus. Everything else is just extra. And because that's all we got. At the end of the day, if there's nothing else, if we don't have the clothes on our back, we got our breath. And if you love breathing, then enjoy being naked.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the same things that can be said about movement. Just as breath is a centering practice, so is movement. And I think a lot of people see exercise, well, I'm going to generalize, overgeneralize, so forgive me, but let me put it in the context of physical therapy. Nobody goes to physical therapist unless they have a problem.
Yeah.
Nobody proactively uses movement as
a lot of pro athletes do.
What's that?
A lot of pro athletes actually do. Like, they do prehab.
Well, you're less than 0.5% of the population.
Yeah.
I'm talking about all us other Joes out there who probably could benefit from movement practices. But again, we are unconsciously unconscious of the benefit of movement practices. Just as we've been speaking for an hour on breathing practices, the same could be said about movement, and we don't realize its value.
Yeah, 100%. Like, even, Aaron Alexander says all the time is like, the way we move throughout the day is the way we move throughout our life. If you're an unconscious mover, just like if you're an unconscious breather, you're going throughout your life unconscious. And the more aware and mindful that we can be of our breath and our movement and our being, the more we're going to really be our best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that point came blazingly to my consciousness when he talked about how unnatural our pooping practices are these days.
Yeah.
We sit entirely too much, and he put it in the context of going to the bathroom. And wow, that's amazing how much we sit in an unnatural position that leads to a lot of deterioration later on. That's amazing.
Yeah, like, I've heard a couple times recently, actually, that sitting is the new cigarette.
Oh, wow.
So cigarettes have been around long enough to where people are realizing that's no good. But now all these new studies and research are showing that just sitting in a couch and sitting in chairs and sitting in the car and sitting on the computer is just blowing up, like, deteriorating our whole entire body. It ruins our movement patterns. It ruins our posture patterns. It hurts our breathing. It hurts our digestion. It hurts all of from those rivers to be flowing, because our body is like an ecosystem. We want the water and the nutrients and all the things to be moving and flowing freely throughout our body.
So Cristiano has a great point in the chat, and I guess I want to preface it by saying you mentioned Tony Robbins earlier. I think Tony Robbins is an amazing changer of energy in a room. So when he's speaking, he can tell when the audience's energy level drops, and he gives a certain hand signal and the music goes on and the clapping starts. The whole room is going nuts. And then boom, he's getting right back into teaching because he wants you in that high energy state in order to hear what he has to say. And Cristiano's asking, do you think you can change your energy level by walking, let's say, exploring nature? Tell me how you use outdoors as a way to change your energy level, Will.
Oh, well, that's a perfect way just for constant realignment, like we are nature, and all the things in our modern day of our stressful life is getting our energy and our waves all like constantly going crazy. But when we go out into nature, the energy and the wavelengths of nature kind of rebalance our emotions, rebalance our mind, so our energy can settle. And it's just a realigning, like there's a really awesome book called The Nature Principle that just shows even something as small as having a plant in your room. Like that plant has energy, and it's a positive energy that brings your energy up, and every tree is giving off fresh oxygen. It's giving off positive energy. Everything that is matter has energy, right? And that, and the trees and the plants and the fresh air and the birds and all that, it's just bringing us back to nature of who we really are, so we can not only realign our energies but reconnect to really what makes us human.
I
And
love how you say breathe in the biome, the microbiome.
yeah,
That makes so much sense.
Oh yeah, I actually got that from Zach Bush, because and that's his hashtag too, is breathe your biome. Is like there's microbiology all around us. And for, like if you're around toxic people with really low energy, you feel that. You start to get a little, a little uneasy, a little negative, right? But when you're around really happy, positive, uplifting people, you become happy and uplifted. And nature is really positive and uplifting. you
Yeah,
know,
no doubt.
and that's just the mental aspect. But on the physical aspect, to go outside and actually breathe in that biome, you're actually feeding all those tiny little microorganisms throughout your whole body. They've figured out in the past 10 years or so that we're actually more fungus than human, and and that fungus is coming from the air that we breathe and the food that we eat and the soil that we touch and the trees and all of the getting our hands in the dirt and getting outside. There's more, we can get more nourishment from the sun than almost anything, just like anything else on this earth. All of the nutrients is outside. Getting outside by breathing in those different biomes not only feeds your immune system and your physical health, but it realigns your mental health and your whole energy system as well.
Yeah, and to Cristiano's point, I have found during this COVID crisis working indoors a lot that there's been a blur now between home life and work life. And I'm in my office a lot just and losing track of time. And, thank goodness my wife will come knock on the door and say, "Hey, let's go on a walk. You need to get outside." So
Yeah.
she
A little
knows.
trick that I do if I'm working inside all day, which you and probably everyone else may think is crazy, is I piss outside. So, so I'm drinking water all day constantly, especially if I'm inside working. Every time I got to go piss, I just go piss outside. And that just little moment of being outside and letting my eyes relax and look at the sky for a second and breathe in some fresh air and maybe turn the spine a little bit just gets my whole energy, instead of it being stagnant and stuck and just to get outside, fertilize the bananas, so to speak, right? And then by looking out into the sky and looking out into the trees, it brings you back into that present moment. It uplifts your energy. It feels good. I promise. Just try it.
Yeah.
Be outside.
You pee outside. That is the
Especially,
takeaway
wake
from
up in the morning. That first piss of the day, go nourish a tree. You know what I mean? Like walk outside,
thrill
put
the
your feet
neighbors.
in the dirt, and pee outside.
All right. Kurt's asking, do you remember where you read or who said we are more fungus than human? I'd be curious to read that too.
Zach Bush.
Zach Bush. Okay.
Dr. Zach Bush. He's been doing so many awesome studies. Like I I didn't hear this part from Zach Bush, but I heard from like 2000 to 2010 was like the decade of the brain. Like scientists learned more about the brain in those 10 years than I think ever, right? And then from 2010 to 2020 has been the decade of fungus. We learned that pretty much everything always starts and ends with some sort of fungus. And we are more of this microbiology of this fungi network than, you know, anything else. And so is everything else, you know, because biology is biology. If you walk outside and you see how that tree is getting nourished, it's really from a fungi network that's under the soil. In the same way of us, that's how we get nourished is, you know, we have fungus in our eyes and all the way inside of our body, and we know it's in our gut, right? Like I think pretty much everyone, that's becoming common knowledge at this point. But yeah, we are more fungi than human.
Interesting. Can't wait to read that.
Yeah.
Well, what are going to be the takeaways, I guess, from what we've talked about with breath and movement? What do you want to leave people with? Maybe as a challenge. You think we need to challenge people this week to do something different than they've done before?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I want some consistency, you know, like I want you guys every single day for a week, right? Because we're going to be here next Thursday. I think Edwin popped it off. We're going to be talking about movement. So this whole week's going to be on movement. But every single day this week, I want you to, before you grab your phone, connect with your breath in some way. Just connect it with your breath and then write down right after that breathing session, just write down some sort of insight, you know, and if you want to share that, post it, take a picture, post it on your story, tag me, tag Edwin, and I'm going to pick one person and I'm going to give away my Happy, Healthy, Strong in 6-week course that has all of the habits and the routines from the breathing, from the movement to the exercises to the workouts. But yeah, every single day, I want to challenge you guys for the next 7 days to, before you grab your phone, connect with your breath. If it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then afterwards, write down something. If the first few days you don't know what to write, that's okay. Just sit there, write something. Say, I did my breathing. I'm not sure what to write. It doesn't matter. Just start somewhere, and then eventually that's going to build some momentum to really get somewhere. And just, yeah, connect with your breath every single morning in some way. I like to do the Wim Hof breathing every single day. And I think there's 1,000,001 different benefits from breath holds that you learn from Wim Hof, and also the book, The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McKeown talks a lot about breath holds and how it pretty much is amazing for your mental and physical health. Brings the nitric oxide in there. It helps your body receive the oxygen a lot better, and it trains your mental strength as well. So yeah, play with your breath, play with yourself, and not in that way. You know what I mean? Like play with your breath and connect it with yourself. And yeah, before you grab your phone every morning, and then write something down, post something, tag me.
All right. So they're going to tag on Instagram is where you want them to do that?
Yep. You can tag me on Instagram or in the group on Will Grant group on Facebook. But most likely I'll see it more on Instagram. And if you post something and I didn't respond, make sure you just send it to me just to make sure that I have seen it.
Excellent. So next week we are going to be talking about all things movement. So get ready. That's going to be an awesome one.
Yeah. All things movement. How can we move and use our body to become the best version of ourselves?
Love it. I'd love to hear before we sign off, if everyone maybe could add in the chat, what do you want to hear about with regard to movement? I know we covered a lot in breath today, so no, we're going to be prepared for a movement conversation next week. But if you have specific questions, I want to give you a couple of minutes before we sign off to just post up what your curiosity is so that we make sure we address that next week. Will, what time do you want to do it next week?
Sometime between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m.
Okay, well, that's a wide window.
Six. you want to do mid-afternoon, like 12-1, or you want to do like 5 or?
So let's do midday, and
Okay.
let's do
12,
midday. So 12 noon your time, maybe.
12 my time?
Yep.
Sounds good.
All right. Would be great to hear about realizing energy. I don't know what that word is, Cristiano. What is? Do you know what triope is? Trapped in the spine from bad posture. Okay.
Energy trapped. Oh, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
Okay.
because our energy is is shown by our posture. Like if you just won something big, you're like that. If you're, our what is it? Our body language completely mimics the way we emotionally feel so much, and that's how we control our energy. So that's why a lot of times you'll see people with certain postures. A lot of times I'll see similarities with certain people having similar postures, and they'll have similar energies as well. Like
Before
not
you
to be
even
funny or to make fun of anyone specific, but I always notice that nosy people are always like this. Their head is always so far forward because they're just trying to get into something, and that brings their head forward. And that, it's the same thing. Stressed people, their shoulders are usually like this, right? Stressed people are like this. And then you got the person who's just calm and relaxed, who's just chilling,
That's the Will Grant pose.
Nah, I'm not as calm as you may think. But we're getting somewhere.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, everybody who showed up, thank you so much for being here. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to be able to interact with you live. For those of you watching the replay, you have the same chance to compete. This video will be up probably tonight. It'll
Next
be
20,
posted tomorrow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be up for a while too. So yeah, just keep tagging me in that. And when I see somebody who's like, "Yo, this person deserves this course," they're getting it.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. There's a lot of magic in a 6-week program that helps people get what we're talking about, becoming happier, healthier, and stronger, which is the way that you master your own life. So Will, thanks for this time with you, brother. I've always enjoyed these conversations. I wake up every Thursday morning excited about the day for 2 reasons. Number one, it's Thursday. And number two, I know I'm going to get a chat with Will Grant sometime in that day.
Well, thank you for being you, and thank you for everything that you do. And thank you so much for everyone showing up and for everyone watching. I really appreciate it. Give it a big old thumbs up if you're on YouTube, and put down a comment below on something that you want to see in the future.
Awesome. Well, until next time, everybody, peace out. We'll see you next time on Chat with Will Grant.